truck, right? And then you had another gun truck in trail. So you get where you're going, the fucking squad dismounts, and then those 4 trucks could satellite around the dismounts to keep the enemy guessing while these guys did their work.
Mm-hmm. What was the how long did it take for you guys to take casualties rolling in there? You remember?
The battalion's first casualties were on St. Patty's Day, if I recall.
So you guys got there in February, and St. Patty's Day is what, end of March?
Yeah.
Middle of March, end of March?
The actual effective transfer of authority day, I think, was I think the first week of March. Maybe the second. It wasn't long before we took our first casualties. Cat Red took an ID up at checkpoint 51 in my zone. Marines were still rolling around with their windows down.
Mm-hmm.
Marine took a hit to the elbow. Another Marine took shrapnel through the window into the back of his leg. The gunner did,
mm-hmm.
right? And then it was either the same day or right after that battalion took his first KIA. 2 killed in a rear roll mine strike in the HK Triangle, which was the western end of Kilo's zone, right up against the wadi that delineated the eastern edge of Huseba and Lehman Company zone. So the HK was this sort of no man's land, mm-hmm. right, between mine and Kilo or Lehman's zone. But it belonged to me. But at the end of the day, at the end of that deployment, the vast majority of the battalion's casualties had occurred in the HK.
Kelly, how old are you at this point?
I turned 21 on April 2nd.
So like a couple. So in country, you turned 21.
I got pulled out of my bed by head first in my sleeping bag, and I was given my 21 happy birthdays.
Hey, what are you thinking at this point? Now how much did it change your perception and perspective when all of a sudden you know that the battalion is taking casualties?
I came from a military family. I mean, my grandpa was in World War II in the Navy. My dad and my uncle were in Vietnam, a cousin in Desert Storm, and then I have law enforcement everywhere. So I grew up with an understanding of service, and when I joined the Marines, we were already in country. Casualties were happening, and my recruiter made no bones about it when I told him I wanted to be in the infantry. He's like, "You do know you're going to deploy?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm well aware." I didn't go in blind. There's some guys that they join the Marines and they're like, "I don't want to go to Iraq." I'm like, "Why the fuck did you join?" Watch the news, pick up a newspaper. So I knew what I was getting myself into, and that never prepares you for it. But luckily, I was surrounded by such good leadership. I was only in for 4 years. I had 3 different command sets. And my first one was of the highest quality, literally. And I always felt oddly taken care of and at ease through it all, mm-hmm. because I believed in the guys that were above me. It made it easier, if in a really weird sense. I always felt calm. I never went out nervous. The brotherhood of the Marines, it's like you're going out and you know that every single guy you're going out is going to do everything in their power to make sure you make it home and make it back. Mm-hmm. In the confidence and calm, I never felt uneasy. I was never scared. I was just there to do a job.
Esprit de corps.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you, Bill.
How old were you at this point, Bill?
22.
22. Get some. Talking to a lot of these guys that I've brought on that were going into the most horrible situations, whether it was Tarawa, Guadalcanal, wherever. There's something that the young man has, which I think we all know, which is it's going to happen to someone else. Like, hey, people are going to get hurt, people are going to get wounded, people are going to get killed. Not going to be me. And I was just telling you guys about Dean Ladd, who I just had on the podcast, who is Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, and Tinian. And he's never even thought about, he was like, oh yeah, I'm sure we're going to take casualties as we cross the beach to Guadalcanal, and I'll try and help those other guys as much as I can because it's not happening to me. So, and then I know you guys know this too. I had guys, and I'm sure you guys knew guys, that thought they were the one that was absolutely going to be the one that gets hit and killed. Like that was in their mind, and God bless them, because I don't know how they did it day after day, but they'd go, yeah, it was the guy that was going, I got a bad feeling about this one, man. I got a bad feeling. You're going, hey, you're going to be okay, bro. It's going to be all right. But they always strapped it on and got their helmet back on, But to me, it seemed like people fell into those camps for the most part, and I'm sure, occasionally someone goes, it's just, we're taking casualties. I could be one of them. But for the most part, I think people are either, hey, probably going to happen to someone else, or it's going to happen to me. So, I don't know. That's kind of what I see.
Jocko, I think you're like 100% right. And I've been fortunate or unfortunate to see combat in my early 20s with Somalia, at 28 in Iraq, and then 38 in Afghanistan. And I think as a young 20s, you feel invincible, and you don't think it's going to happen to you, or you just operate and you're there. You want to be the one to kick the door in. You want to be then clear the room. And then at 28, I started leading more Marines, and I become you understand your mortality, and what we're doing is not normal, and fire and stuff and explosions. And then when I was a company first sergeant for 2-1, then I just wanted to be that father figure and take care of them all. And all these young Marines, they just want to see that grizzly, that combat. And then, but it's not what it's cracked up to be, and that grizzly's powerful and can fight back.
Yeah, I definitely, from my perspective, it was always, hey, I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about my guys, Mm-hmm. And I was always in a leadership position because I was a platoon commander, I was a task unit commander. So for me, it was always, I'm worried about my guys, Well,
Ferg's absolutely right. I mean, I was 21. I was on the I never thought it was going to be me bandwagon. And, that's why I frequently ran point. I was like, I want to be the first one. I want to be in the lead. I'm going to be checked for IDs. Something happens, it's going to shoot at me. I know how fast I am. I can get behind a wall. I never, ever, it never crossed my mind. I didn't even, in a really weird way, even with all the casualties that happened, I didn't think it was an option.
Yeah.
I think that, at least from my experience, but I got this sense from other Marines, as casualties started ramping up, Lima was taking the vast majority of the brunt. And I was probably technically incorrect in that statement about the HK and casualties. There had to have been more in Huseba proper. But anyway, as they started happening on a regular basis, at least for me, it was no longer a question of if. It was just a question of when. So I eventually just decided, well, it's going to happen, right? I mean, Rick Gannon, Lima Company commander, and 4 of the Marines killed in the opening stages of the Battle for Huseba on the 17th, 3 days after Dunham was hit. Company commander gone, just like that. So it wasn't a question of if it was going to happen. So at least for me, I just resolved that it was going to happen. So once I accepted that, it was easier to operate, because then you didn't have that uncertainty about whether or not it would happen. So it was just like, well, when it comes, it comes. There's nothing I can fucking do about it. So it's just time to get this thing done. And I think there's, I would say to a large degree, an acceptance amongst the Marines, because we didn't pull back. Because one day we didn't fucking operate in that 7-month deployment. One day, and that was after we lost 3 Marines on the damn 5th of July. This is the one day we did not send a patrol into zone.
Yeah, I know for us, certainly rolling into Ramadi in 2006, there was memorial services going on every other day, every 2 days for soldiers and Marines that were getting killed. I mean, it was that. And so much like you're talking about, I knew every time we rolled out the gate, or every time my guys rolled out the gate, there's a decent chance that something bad was going to happen. And all you can do is do everything you can to mitigate that risk, but there's no possible way to mitigate all the risk. That just doesn't happen. Even if you say, you know what, we're going to stay in camp, you're going to get mortared. So my attitude was default aggressive. We're going to go and take the fight to the enemy, and that was certainly the attitude of the troops that were in Ramadi. Was we're not going to sit back and wait for it. We're going to take the fight to the enemy. Yeah. And I believe that's the best thing you can do.
You have to, I think. And the most inspiring thing to me was watching these Marines day in and day out, every fucking day, despite the danger, despite the casualties, despite what at times I'm sure seemed like a ridiculous mission, despite all of that, the cold resolve to do the job and keep each other safe in the process was humbling. American sons out there, devoid of any political context. What they were doing for each other.
Yeah. It's also interesting to think about when you say American sons. Look, Americans come from all different kinds of backgrounds, but the fact of the matter is, when you live in America, you are a privileged human being. Like, you have opportunity. Hey, even if you're the most unmotivated person in America, you still can live a pretty decent life when you compare it to that of a grunt overseas, living in some outstation somewhere off of MREs and crappy bottled water, shitting in a damn outhouse, burning, I mean, just the whole 9 yards. So when these, it's not like, hey, people join the military. Maybe there's that idea, hey, I'm trying to get out of my hometown, which I know I certainly did. Hey, I want to get out of my hometown. I want to go somewhere. I want to be in the world. But you're signing up to put all that American privilege on hold. You're going to put it on hold. And you're going to go out there and you're going to live in horrible situations with the threat of being wounded and killed. And that's the way it is. And so, yeah, when you see that and when you see those service members rolling out like that day after day after day, and that's, I've talked about this in Ramadi. You might remember this, Kelly, but they had the vehicle graveyard. The vehicle graveyard of all these blown up vehicles was on the road that headed to the main gate. So when you were driving to go out into town, you were driving past not just destroyed Humvees.
7 tons.
7 tons. Tanks that they dragged back in. So that was your little send-off every time you left the gate at Camp Ramadi. Oh, there's 75 or 100 vehicles that have been destroyed, and you know that each one of those meant some level of casualties.
Well, and it got real because there was the 2 EOD vehicles that were in the graveyard that had the V barrels. Bearcats, I think they were called.
Yeah. Those big mine-resistant vehicles, they blew one of those things in half. So, yeah, that's what you're signing up for. And yet, Americans sign up for it voluntarily every single day. And then they go out there and do the work. What was the morale? Overall, strong. That's what I'm hearing. Strong.
It was resolve. It was, in my assessment, it was just fucking resolve. We're in this. We're not getting out of it, right? We got a fucking job to do. We're going to get it done. We're not going to let up. The enemy wants us to fucking take a break. They want us to feel sorry for ourselves. Turn our fucking backs for a minute. And we're not going to fucking give it to them. Period. They will not win.
Well, I don't know. We'll call this a Boots perspective, but a really weird thing happens. Bad shit starts to happen. You go out on patrol, you get shot at, an IED goes off, doesn't take you out. There was one situation where an RPG hit the vehicle, but the guy didn't arm it.
Mm-hmm.